Welcome to NeuroNoodle's Neurofeedback and Neuropsychology podcast featuring tech legend Jake Gunkelman. He's the man who has read well over 500,000 brain scans, and Dr. Marie Swingle, author of iMinds. Our goal is to provide information and promote options for better mental health. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. The NeuroNoodle podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.
Okay.
What's been going on in Canada?
Well, we're just watching the circus.
Why you want to go there?
Yeah. No, I mean, we've got a good country up here. We want to keep it that way. Hey, Jay.
Hey, Mari. Good to see you.
Welcome to Thursday morning.
Yeah, I was going to say, you want to just do tomorrow tonight? And
I think we made it.
I'm a few minutes late. I was doing a PowerPoint for my talk tomorrow about the insula.
Okay.
The School of Neurotherapy has got people doing talks on Thursdays apparently, and tomorrow's my day. So.
Okay.
And that's Nick Whitridge, Jay?
Another
Tiff
Nick.
Thompson and Nick Dogres.
Oh, Nick Dogres, not Nick Whitridge. Okay.
And School of Neurotherapy is able to talk about clinical applications, and Neurofield as a manufacturer really can't. I mean, the FDA regulates what the manufacturer can say, but like Brainmaster has stress therapy solutions as an educational. It's not really part of Brainmaster. It's a loosely affiliated educational nonprofit. So they've got essentially the same thing, School of Neurotherapy, and they've got regular good people lecturing there, not just me. So
They do. I mean, I have to give them a hand there in terms of the people they're bringing in. So that's great. Keep it all going. Keep it all going.
Yeah, and Tiff actually was a registered EEG tech at one point. I mean, that's not something you get by accident,
Yeah.
So there's exams and practicum, and it's not an easy exam. So.
Thank goodness. Haida's asking a question. Haida, welcome to the show. If you ask a question, it means I don't have to. Jay, are you going to talk about the effect of neurostimulation too? ?
I can, and there's lots of kinds of neurostimulation. If you're talking about photobiomodulation, that's using various kinds of red light, basically to modulate the brain with different frequencies. But you can also neuromodulate with coils that put out very weak frequency pulses, microcurrent pulses, crudely equivalent to the strength of a cell phone, but not some random frequency is specifically timed. And pulsed coils can end up entraining brain function. So they can have an effect on the brain, although they don't create an action potential. So it's not like neurostimulation with TMS, which is a big coil, but those devices are 100,000 at the bottom end and 250 and up for a high-end device. But they create action potentials. You can make the brain do something with those. The other stimulation technologies, photobiomodulation, coil, DC stim can have an effect on the brain that potentiates activity or inactivity of the brain, and that's another neurostimulation technology. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds. It's like saying, are you going to talk about medication? Whoa, what kind? So photobiomodulation is popular right now in research in dementia, with its application for those that are having mild cognitive impairment, wanting to desperately hang on like the little kitten hanging on to the wire, hold on to that last little bit of cognitive capacity, and they don't want to decline into dementia. And there's such a thing as presenile dementia, which is an old name for Alzheimer's. I'm too old to have something that's presenile. So,
are you post-senile?
I'm, that was presenile was people having dementia, occasionally in their 30s, 40s, but mostly in their early 50s, and that's early. And to lose your cognitive skill set in your 50s is, that's devastating. You're in the height of your earning power. If you've moved up in an organization, you should be at your prime in your 50s. So, not in your 75s.
Actually. And it's funny. It was actually a client that asked me this that got my big I haven't had the time to look into it, but in terms of the caps that people are using for baldness, the infrared caps, I don't even know what type of light, what frequency, etc. And what could that be doing? Could it be interfering with the EEG? Could it be doing stuff? Do you have an immediate answer to that, Jay? I mean, it's something I want to look into, but I haven't
if
yet.
You're doing exposure to red light that's not pulsed, it does not have the same kind of an effect.
But some of them are pulsing, I think.
Yeah, it may have it may have an effect on the brain. The only way to test that is actually do a pre-post and evaluate it. But the photobiomodulation for dementia, that they actually have some fairly good studies. Unlike a lot of manufacturers that just they come up with something and put it in the market, the iSync Brain group that does the iSync which is the lighter helmet, and the iSync Wave, which is the older, heavier one. But they actually did research in institutions in Korea and have now are underway at Harvard and Montreal Neurological. They're working in academic centers here in the U.S. and also in Oxford. So they're busy with validation studies there, and they've published some already showing some maintenance of your level of function with the photobiomodulation.
But let's all not forget, folks, that we can do our own pre-posts. And I think that's one of the big reasons that everybody should have equipment wherein you can do your pre-post. And we do that here because there's certain things we're wanting to target. We're also introducing the photobiomodulation, and we do little pre-posts. We have the capacity, and also to make sure that you're not doing something like you're only doing what you want to do as well.
And their studies end up having match control groups, and that's a level of study that you inside of a clinic. It's hard to end up having a match control.
No, I mean, I forget. Of course, we don't.
Doing pre-post on your clients, you can do case reports and case studies, which are good. They're everybody kind of disparages, that's just a case report. Well, honestly, most of the major changes in medicine and stuff were started with a case report. By the way, that infection went away with that funny mold thing from the bread. But little case reports end up making major impacts. So let's not denigrate case studies. they need to be well done. And when you have a case study, you may end up with a case series, and a case series will give enough information for somebody to design a study and get funding. So that it's the building blocks of the pyramid that science represents, and it's foundational, not something to disparage, but something to foster.
All right, the kitchen has an order in. Can neurostimulation help with discharges like using SMR range frequency?
In fact, typically stimulation technologies, unless you're a specialist working with it for epilepsy, have paroxysmal EEG as a contraindication. If you look to the literature in TMS, especially the early literature, there was extreme warnings. And if you happen to be on an anticonvulsant, they wouldn't let you in some of the early studies. Now that's starting to change, but it's still a precaution and a strong warning. Essentially, don't use stimulation technologies where you may trigger a discharge. So, and if you hear a whining dog in the background, Sky's
That's our co-host.
He's doing his normal co-host in the background. So.
Can discharges shift from one side of the brain to another side? If it is common, does it have any significance?
Yes. First of all, it's very common to have a discharge on one side cause the other side, the good side, to behave badly. It's so common that they often cut out the bad side so the good side can stay good. Now that surgery has a complication. If epilepsy is not a focus; it's a network property. And as Rusty says, you can't cut a slice out of the San Andreas fault and make it stop that network. I mean, this is not an easy thing to change. So, but Barry Sturman actually did SMR training and showed that SMR training got the good side to stay good and the bad side to become good. So, you actually have better outcomes from neurofeedback than you do from neurosurgery. Yeah. And neurosurgeries commonly got a side effect of still having seizures afterwards. To the extent that when they report their outcome studies, they don't even include partial seizures as something that they would count. I kind of think if you're having a seizure thing, it's not a successful outcome. So.
Details.
Yeah, but the neurofeedback using the same standards as the field of neuroscience publishing in the area of epilepsy, they're looking for a 50% decline in the seizure rate. That's success as far as they're concerned. The clients I work with, I consider success the elimination of the seizures entirely and being off of medication that are quite often required to stabilize things. I think that's success. Now, not having seizures and having some small discharges that don't cause a seizure but still are instabilities, that's something that I see in some of these people that are still seizure free. That they may have EEG anomalies, not a full-blown seizure, and continued training ends up being helpful to avoid backsliding into a circumstance where a seizure would occur.
Yeah, some of the proudest work we do is with the itsy bitsies, what I affectionately call the munchkins, from 2 to 4 years old, just keeping those seizures at bay so it doesn't affect, primal or primary, I should say, development. And those are the ones that bless our hearts.
Hyde has got another one here. This is a seizure-free case. I saw it shift from right to left after 80 sessions of neurofeedback.
Things shift in neurofeedback with training. That's what you're doing with training, is shifting things. So I don't know exactly so it's a seizure-free case. So she saw it shift from right to left, but a seizure-free case. Uh, um, it, you know, I can show you the case Isabella, which the neurosurgeon was proposing cutting out the right temporal lobe. And when I looked at that EEG, the left temporal lobe was the trigger, and the big voltages came out of the right temporal lobe. They saw the big voltages, that's where they were going to take it out. But the actual trigger was the left insula, buried deep in the brain. And they just didn't see it, but then, half the doctors are in the bottom half of their class,
Chiropractors?
No, doctors, half of any kind of doctors are in the bottom half of their class, by definition.
I'm going to get some hate mail.
Hey, send it to me. If you're upset with me, take a number, stand in line.
Thank goodness a question, so I won't talk. Hi, all. I provided 2 neurofeedback sessions so far to my first neurofeedback client. What should I be looking for regarding EEG trends, graphs while she trains?
Well,
hi, Eddie.
You're going to be training something, and if you're deliberately targeting a frequency to be facilitated, you need to track that across time. If you're inhibiting bands directly that you think need to be inhibited, you need to track the inhibit bands across time as well. So you'll have essentially a learning curve showing session by session by session how the targeted frequencies are moving. Now, it's sometimes the case that the feedback that's being given is generated by software. And at that point, you're going to have to look to the manufacturer. The software is going to be guiding people in z-score space towards the decreased Mahalanobis distance to be accurate, how deviant you are from the ideal centroid within the pattern. But that's set up with the normative databases, and I don't work with database norms. They're interesting, but quite honestly, they're an artificial construct. You combine a bunch of different phenotypes, and together they create the normative distribution. And the phenotype ends up predicting your treatment. Where you are in the normative distribution doesn't necessarily tell you how you need to be fixed.
You have the wrong 2 people or right 2 people on the show to be asking this question. I mean, same here.
I think Joel Lubar's early contribution to the field was him demanding learning curves from people that were doing training.
Yeah.
And and he was really adamant about it, and appropriately so.
Yeah.
Jim Hart's 1974 dissertation out of Kamiya's lab was the 5th order shape of the learning curve for EEG alpha acquisition.
Yeah.
So there's really good science out there underlying all of this, if you know where to look.
Yeah. I mean, I to this day, I would say well over 80% of what we do, it's amplitude and ratio training. I mean, we're targeting very, very, very specific things, and we have hawk eyes on it. Okay.
Yeah. And that form of training is the form of training that has been shown in the meta-analysis to have efficacy. The z-score approaches have papers that they've published, but the meta-analysis chastised them for publishing their work in journals that you can't use as a reference in a respectable journal because they're predatory journals. Beale's list of predatory journals, look it up. If the journal is listed there, don't waste your time publishing there. You publish it in something that's actually going to be read somewhere. It's important not to waste your time with a perfectly good publication in putting it into a journal that's not a good journal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, please, big shout out to everybody, professionals and non-professionals. I that happens to me all the time, but I saw this article, but where, what was it, and if somebody says NASA does this, yeah, but do you do what NASA says they do?
Yeah.
It just, yeah. We're in a really interesting era that just because something is published does not mean it does what it says it does.
Yeah.
We have to hammer that home. Oh, we have another question.
Yeah, welcome, Sonia.
I think that we have good evidentiary work in the area of ADD, ADHD. However, it's a DSM category and it's not one thing. So don't expect one treatment to be effective for all people with ADD, ADHD. You can have a frontal theta, you can have a frontal alpha, you can have a frontal beta. All of this are different. You can have theta and beta. I mean, it's a complex world out there for ADD, ADHD, but there's good work being published. Sandra Liu, who was with Barclay in the old days of Ritalin, being kind of the one and only pharma before all the other drugs have come out and become studied and popularized. So she's done meta-analysis using neurofeedback and compares neurofeedback's efficacy to that of medication. Medication isn't 100% accurate in fixing ADD either, and not without side effects, and not proven with long-term outcomes. In fact, the long-term outcomes with meds doesn't look good at all. So for ADD and ADHD, I think we can actually claim good efficacy and have proof of it. I hand out neurofeedback brief that's has been put together by Brain Futures, and it's well done. It goes through and answers all the questions. Is it a temporary fix? Is it long lasting? What's the evidence behind it, basically? And I think for that we've got that nicely in order. For autism spectrum, the evidence is emergent evidence. We don't have the level of scientific support that we do for ADD, ADHD. But for the clinical experience with autism spectrum, if you go to the autism spectrum specialist, how do you know it's a real specialist? Well, sometimes they actually end up being a center of excellence, declared that by the state. And in Washington State, Greg Charbonneau is a center of excellence for autism. There, the parents sued for parity, and then the insurance companies came back and said, well, if we have to spend up to $500,000 a year on the kid, you have to get them diagnosed at a center of excellence. You can't just have any regular family doctor declare them to be autistic. You have to have it. So if you go to a center of excellence that has 10 years of experience with EEG, QEEG, and neurofeedback, I think you'll find that they wouldn't want to give it up. It's good and solid for them. I've got a couple of publications in the area of autism. One was in this Autism Science Digest, which is a kind of like a parent organization, and it's not like a journal where they have peer review. It's invited papers. So they might correct your grammar or something, but they invite the science in. It's not a peer-reviewed deal, but it's by parent invite into their publication, and it's got a reasonable level of scrutiny about who's publishing in it. But that's fairly dated at this point. But it's written for the parent, so it goes right from the very basics of what the hell is an EEG anyway, and the band ranges and the kinds of patterns you might see in the autism spectrum. Because if you think ADD was a little complex, autism spectrum is wildly more complex. 70% of the autism spectrum have epileptiform content in the EEG, for God's sakes. That throws quite a curve at pretty much anything. So you really got to look at that as a group. But we've got good outcome evidence in that area, and I think that the literature will follow. I encourage people to publish.
Before we go on to the next question, though, I just want to hound home a few of the things that Jay's been talking about in terms of, ADHD, ASD, and learning disabilities. I mean, talk about umbrella. So, I mean, the key thing in terms of the people the clinicians that are having success, don't go with the bloody label. We look at whether you want to call them symptoms or concerns, we look at the expressed issue, and then we look at what's going on in the brain, and that matchup tells us what to do. So, of course, the quote unquote protocols are going to vary based on what the matchup is or isn't. One of the big things that I kind of hang my hat on is, this learning disabilities. I can't tell you how many children, there's no learning disability, it's a missed learning phase. You go in there, stimulate the area of the brain that's a little slow or a little fast, and teach something, whatever they missed, learning disability is gone. Okay, so which tells you it wasn't a learning disability. So, I mean, we have to be really, really careful about these labels, and specifically with ADHD and learning disabilities, we can manufacture a disability, we can exacerbate a disability. Now, autism, of course, is in its class of its own, but the one thing we have to really emphasize there, it's a spectrum, it's a spectrum, it's a spectrum, it's a spectrum, okay? So what we're targeting can vary incredibly. And I think a lot of the individual, this is the square peg must go in the square box. It doesn't work that way, I would say, with clinicians who, I'm going to, be a bit biased here, who know what they're doing. What else can I say?
So when we're questioned about our ability to treat an imaginary category, you got to kind of wonder what they're looking for. If Neurofeedback didn't have huge power, I would have been doing something else for the last 52 years.
Yeah. And we've been in practice 30 years. Actively, people are paying for a service. You don't get repeat clients in the same city. You don't have 30 pop-up clinics emulating what we're doing unless we're doing something right. I'm not just chest pounding. It's just when we see the brain, we get an accuracy. See, targeted treatment. Ha ha ha. Yeah.
Speaking of targeted,
I do suggest that people in the field do publications. We did an N of 30 outcome study in addiction, and we didn't do a standard protocol because you have addiction, you get this standard protocol. We based the treatment based on their endophenotype. So your endophenotype tells you what kind of treatment you need, not your symptom cluster. So we ended up at the end of 1 year with a standard score improvement of 20 points or more across all the scales on the Woodcock-Johnson 3, including a 21-point IQ GIA, which is their IQ measurement, from normal to superior. And 100% of the people were still clean and sober. And that's not a figure you usually expect to see in addiction. And that's the outcome, though. You just publish the outcome.
With sensory processing disorders in children, which sites are the most effective to work on?
How does this loop in?
What kind of sensory processing disorder?
Exactly.
You can have an auditory processing disorder that's a different network than a visual processing disorder. If you have somatosensory integration difficulties and have interoceptive difficulties. I mean, there's all sorts of different kinds of sensory problems. One of the early publications on dyslexia found PZ to be a big source of delta. But most of the work I see now looks at the left temporal Wernicke's area in dyslexia. The thing is, PZ is step one for sensory integration before Wernicke area gets its input to comprehend anything.
Yeah.
So the PZ finding was a valid finding. It just was it looked at a different cluster of people, again, with the diagnostic category of dyslexia.
And a huge amount of children with dyslexia, it's not a brain, well, it's all a brain issue, but essentially they're not phonetic readers. And you can shove phonetics down their throat as much as you want. They're going to fail, they're going to fail, they're going to fail. You have to teach them a technique that I call tracking. So this is what I'm talking about, learning phases, etc. So for better, for worse, the answer is it depends. The other thing with sensory processing, sometimes it's what people call anxiety. So it's essentially a child that is over aroused. And, you know, they're literally physically sensitive, you know, because of that. So it really, really depends. Again, where do we go? We got to look at the brain. The titles are just looping us around and around and around. I mean, it gives us a basic idea. It gives us an entry point in terms of how we ask questions of the parents and the child. But then you got to look at the brain and see what's responsible.
I have to say that the psychiatrists that have attended my workshops historically, it has totally changed their careers as to what they're doing. And Hassan Asif in New York City, for instance, considers himself a neurotherapist. And he's as busy as you wish to be. He's got an office in Georgia, not the state, but the country, as well as offices in New York. So he's doing very well. EEG is done on everybody who walks in the door. He has a tech who hooks people up. And if you're going to talk to him about your medication, he wants to see your EEG. If you're doing TMS or any therapy of any sort, even talk therapy, you want to look at your EEG. So it's totally changed.
I remember him. He was in one of the first times he presented was 2013, 2014 in was it Rome or was it Venice? We picked good places for conferences. Yeah.
He's
been around a while. Good on him.
He had a 2-page spread in the Washington Post, 2 full pages in the Washington Post about his practice in Manhattan. So
he's making some money if he can afford that.
Well, he didn't. It was written up by them. He didn't pay for that as an ad. I can't imagine what an ad. What would a 2-page spread in the Washington Post cost if you tried to put it there as an ad? You know. So, but it created international customers coming to him from Australia and all over the world. We're popping in for their EEGs to be evaluated and predicting what medications or other treatments to have. So it really is one of my favorite things to do, is to educate a psychiatrist about the EEG, because they know a fair amount about the brain. But until they really put 2 and 2 together and start to look at the EEG as actually brain function, that they don't really get it yet. And the ones who have learned EEG, having a background in psychiatry, that's exploded their career. So.
So ASD, that kind of goes into what I was speaking about. You know, there's children on the spectrum, very frequent. There's just so much information coming in that they're trying to process. And I think, you know, without looking at the EEG, that a lot of that is quieting, you know, just quieting to, you know.
Can you talk about cognitive impairment, developmental delay in children, and the impact that neurofeedback might have to help? Thanks. Thank you, Sonia.
Can we ever? Where do we start?
So you can see the difference between developmental delay and developmental deviation by looking at the EEG. There's developmental curves, maturational curves that are predicted for EEG as it matures, as the brain matures. And certain ages you get certain frequency shifts in the alpha up to a certain amount. So you can see developmental delay objectively. In fact, in the original NX Link software, there was an age lead or lag to the data. They could predict whether your data would be normal at a younger age. So you've got an immature brain. It's developing normally for a younger age. Or is this a developmental deviation? There's no regression that's going to make it look more normal. So they had some very nice multivariates that were available in that software, but that software is gone.
We got the new administration coming in with RFK Jr. taking over for the health side of things.
I don't know that that's the case yet. We'll see
Okay.
who makes it in and who doesn't. Of the people that have been promoted for various positions, some will make it and some will not. And I'm not going to worry about somebody's positions on something until they're actually in office, because there's a process. And unless you make it through that hazing, and there are some people that have gone into the haze and been, wandered back out, going, my God.
But for the yip yap factor, I think this is, when Pete and I were just chatting before you came on, Jay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I think attacking all of those just bowls of sugar that children eat in the morning called cereal, I mean, that's good. And then you have the Looney Tunes on the other side. So, a lot of the people coming in, there's this polarization of positive things they could do, and just, nut bar stuff that's going to take us back.
They want a fellow to run the military, but he's apparently got his difficulties with various circumstances of womanizing and drinking and
where I was going with this.
Reel us in. We're only two.
Where I was going with this is, I don't know what the percentage is, but we can agree that the beds in the United States that are devoted for mental health are inadequate. Can we agree on that?
I will have to say that I started working in the North Dakota State Hospital for the Insane, which is what it was originally called. The North Dakota State Hospital is all that's left of the name, but that's where my lab was. It was in a state hospital, and there were more people in there than deserved to be in there. Mm-hmm. They had more beds than they really needed for the psychiatric care in North Dakota. And they had wards full of people that had Parkinsonism. Well, that's, what are you doing in a state hospital if you've got a movement disorder? I mean, you need to be in care, but not institutionalized in a ward somewhere where you're not going to be looked at. The beds being funded would be nice, but you have to look at what beds they're funding.
I'd say the beds that are needed in Canada as well in the US, and I mean, you can go for Europe, or detox beds. And anybody that has an addiction that wants help and says that they should be in within, an hour. I think that's the one if we're really going to talk about.
And you'd be hard pressed to find an inpatient facility to take you in a lot of circumstances here.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because I don't know this administration that's coming in. If they're saying, okay, RFK, whoever the health person is, the policy, will they put more money into mental health? I don't know, but it seems to me that in Canada they have more beds devoted as a percentage of the population than the U.S.
You have to consider that their insurance doesn't take 20% off the top to pay the administrators. Medicare is a 4% overhead,
Yeah.
and private is 20% plus, and a lot of it's service denial. I mean, United Healthcare had a 37% denial rate, and Kaiser has a 7% denial rate.
Yeah.
So, you know,
We may have lineups, but we don't deny.
yeah, I'm I'm not in favor of blindly throwing money at mental health, but it needs to have more money in that area, not just
Yeah.
blindly thrown.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. And if I could throw in Canada, I mean, my political opinion, both personal and professional, is I was a bit saddened, for example, when they would, talking about blanket covering for medications. I would say if you're going to just blanketly support the pharmaceutical companies, you should support individuals' right to choose other things. But of course, I mean, we're opening ourselves up to all kinds of things in terms of what an individual has a right to choose in terms of treatments or interventions that have some kind of track record. So it's a can of worms for most places. But we got to be careful. I mean, if it's who's supporting what and for what purposes. And I think my criticism of the US system is it's all profit, profit, profit. I don't know where the actual care comes in there, except the people at the bottom of the service providing, the people who are hands-on with the people needing the assistance. But otherwise, I mean, from external eyes, it's all about profit and, as you said, denial.
yeah.
Well, you want us to pay for it.
The government paying for it means people pay for it. I mean, the government doesn't have money unless you pay them. So if you get the administrative overhead down from 20% to 4%, we'd have a heck of a lot more care.
Yeah.
And the head of a hospital system that was paid $1 billion for a year's pay. Now, after the first 100 million, how do you earn the rest of that? I mean,
can you repeat that? Who the heck was paid $1 billion?
The head of a hospital chain that they actually collapsed because those hospital chains are profitable as long as they're growing. They look great on their books. But when they don't have more hospitals to acquire and they're just operating the ones they have, things start to look a little lean. So,
Hey, Jay, the phone's ringing, and it's Elon Musk from the Department of Governmental Efficiency. He says, Jay, I don't know if you'll take the call or not, but just in case you take the call, he says, we need your help getting health more efficient. What would be your suggestions?
Well, if you want to get health more efficient, he knows how to take the profit out of the middlemen in a company. He can do that in healthcare as well. Strip away the case managers making a salary and put it back in the hands of the physicians making the decisions. You don't necessarily need to have somebody without the medical training making decisions about healthcare access, and really that's unfortunately happening all too much. If you get a denial, there's actually a routine response that you're supposed to provide, and that's to ask for the credential of the physician who created the denial, where he's licensed, what his current CEs are, and a bunch of questions about the credentials of the person who made the decision. And then also the rate of acceptance and denial. And at that point, the insurance company usually just pays you to get rid of the hassle. We ran into that with healthcare for cancer. The denial of really quite expensive genetically targeted medication. And if it weren't for the Postal Union, they would have pulled the plug on the care. But we had 4 years of effective care for somebody who had a stage 4 lung cancer. So, and the average life expectancy there is much shorter than 4 years, obviously.
Do you think we'll ever get into the point where we're using our genomes to kind of predict healthcare expenses, or privacy will always be an issue?
It'll always be an issue for privacy.
It's already kind of happening, though.
The insurance company would love to deny your pre-existing genetic conditions, and you can have the genetics for breast cancer and never get it. You can have the genetics for Alzheimer's and never get it. The genes don't always express themselves. So phenotypes are expressed genes. If you see a phenotype, you've got something that you can predict treatment based on.
But when you bet on the Super Bowl, you're looking at the odds, right, Jay? So it's the odds makers.
Right. I make one daily bet, and that's that I make it another day.
Oh, thank God, Radar's here. Sorry, got here late. Let's say someone needs to improve their reading comprehension because they want to do well on the LSAT for law school. What sort of training would you recommend?
Well, I can take that one on. I'd say you have to look at the EEG. So, I mean, for some individuals, there could be excess slow activity, so they're not absorbing well. For other individuals, it could be excess fast activity, and they're actually over anxious. So it really, really depends. I would say there's no absolute answer without looking at the EEG.
And you're talking about comprehension and memory consolidation, and that requires proper sleep.
Sleep.
If you've got a particular problem with linear logic processing, Wernicke's area, you can tune that area up and improve your reading comprehension, and both reading and math, language and mathematics comprehension.
But so much is far, I hate to say it, below that. It's so much more simple before you get into that level of detail. I don't know whether you'd agree with me there, Jay. But just in terms of either stimulating or quieting, based on what you see. I think, if I dare say, I think that might be one of the issues as well, that we look for these levels of complexity when many of the issues are I don't want to say simple, but they're much further down on the rung of solution. I think I've joked before about calling myself a KISS therapist. Keep it simple, silly. Look for the simplest solution first, and then if you don't find solutions with those, the things that are staring you in the face, which I would say 85% of the time is that, then you can look into regions of the brain that are very, very targeted for the absolute specific skill, as per those nice assessments where they say processing disorder. But just because it says a processing disorder does not mean it's region ABC of the brain. It could be that the individual is overstimulated or understimulated when they're.
So there's no such thing as digital Ritalin?
We talked about consolidation of memory during sleep being required. But you also have semantic and declarative memory performance. If your alpha is slightly slower, if you have alpha 1, 8, 9, 10, your performance will not be superior. If you have 10, 11, 12, you're going to have superior semantic and declarative memory performance. So stuff you learned, the ability to spit out a name of something, semantic or declarative, this is that, those kinds of naming things require you to pull out things and so when you're coming to test taking time, if your alpha is running slow, you're going to have difficulty pulling back out what you actually know you know.
Yeah.
So we need to look at, are you encoding it properly? And if you are you going to sleep and transferring what you just encoded into something you'll have tomorrow and the day after, long-term potentiation? And what's your performance level for when you actually get to the point of actually taking the test? If you go into the test and you're over aroused, you have the arousal performance continuum. If you're over aroused, you'll never pass that. You'll have test taking anxiety and
Yeah.
bomb your test. So,
Yeah. And that's kind of my point, that if you have the quote unquote test taking anxiety because you're over aroused, and then you go in and you're like, oh, well, we want to make you cognitively stronger, so we're gonna, pump up those fast frequencies. Yeah. It's subtle stuff, but yeah, check your peak alpha as
best
well.
to have evidence-based interventions and personalized interventions, and those two things need to both be held right in front of you to make your choice. If you don't have good evidence of it, you've got to think twice about doing it. And the evidence is out there for neurofeedback. You just need to look for it.
Okay, is there a neuroanatomy course you recommend to satisfy requirements for BCIA certification? Thank you, Eddie asked.
BCIA has their own blueprint that they hand out, which is a list of topics and a whole bunch of articles that they have recommended as sources. And their recommendations are obviously well matched for their examinations. So I'd suggest that. I know that Fred Schaefer has a neuroanatomy for dummies thing out there that probably matches up really well with the content in any exam.
What is the biochemical drive for the discharges increasing ASD? Are there any food supplements to help stabilization of these discharges?
You'd have to show me the discharge before I would know which kind it was. Is it a paroxysmal slow discharge, or is it a beta spindle discharge? Quite a few of the epileptiform discharges end up being triggered by immune issues. So it's not always a simple thing. You can have discharges based on aberrant electrolytic balance. You take it one at a time and evaluate what the one discharge is as to what might influence it. There are nutraceuticals that people recommend, but you should go to somebody who's good at that, a good functional medicine doctor, to make those recommendations.
Yeah,
That's
please
not
be
me.
careful about all the supplements. It's a huge business. There's not a lot of proof for a lot of them, and parents spend outrageous amounts of money.
Expensive pee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and damage your kidneys and the like too with too much.
Here's the question of the night. How can I see the documentary about Jay, Signal and the Noise?
Put it up, Jay.
We should show it some night. It's 2 hours long, but it isn't. They went. It's not mine. It belonged to the directors who filmed it, and they took it through a few years. And unfortunately, all the pandemic happened in the middle of that. 2022, it got laurels for getting awards at a film festival. So how do you promote something to get it distributed? You get a whole bunch of laurels. So they were in the middle of that process, and it all kind of got derailed. So we don't have a distributor for it, and it's been shown at a few movie theaters by just because I had it shown at the Fargo Theater because I grew up there and my sisters hadn't seen it yet. So I paid for it to be shown at the Fargo Theater. But it's been shown in groups of psychiatry resident students in Ohio. It's been
But they
shown.
don't care. They want to see it now. Tell the directors to get some capitalist tendencies and let's get something out there so we can watch it.
If people contact me directly, I can give them a link to it and a password so they can watch it. But it's not casual entertainment. It's a documentary, and
it's pretty damn good, Jay. What are you talking about?
Well, it's not all happy and sunshine. They end up chatting quite a bit about my death as towards the end of it. So, I agree.
You can't put it on Amazon Prime, Jay. Come on now, let's go.
It's not
Capitalism
mine.
Is good.
It's not mine to do anything with. If people contact me, I can give them a copy of it to show to themselves because I've got permission to do that. But the owners of it, Mary Tracy and Ethan Ireland, decide where it gets distributed. So,
if you see it, Ethan, don't mention my name. All right, so here
Amazon Prime Video. I don't even know. I don't really have much of an internet social stuff. This is pretty far out on my experience being invited to be on a podcast. So,
hey Jay, why don't you suggest we show it at one of the next meetings and we charge a little fee and give it to your student fund?
It was shown at APB one time, and I'm happy to put it on and let it run for 2 hours if there was a group that wanted to watch it online. But
I put this offer out there, Jay. We got our Patreon page up there, and if somebody wants to watch it, donate. The money all goes to whatever the directors. But
everything that I get goes to students. So in fact, quite often people consult with me and say, "Well, what's your fee?" And I said, "Well, I could tell you my hourly rate, but whatever your hourly rate is, or my hourly rate, whichever one is less, has to go into a student fund." And I can give them a handful of student funds if they don't know of any, but they're out there,
Hey, Haida says, I've seen it. It is awesome.
Okay, guys, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
And
Jay and I are going to be there.
And there's a lot of people that have seen it that I don't even have any idea who's seen it, so, which is fine with me. I agreed to sit for it. And at first I thought they'd come in with a little handheld video and ask me a dozen questions and that would be it. But I think there was 36 hours of video that was shot, and interviews with people from all over the place, Korea, Russia, actually the Koreans showed it translated into Korean over that at Seoul at the university, and so it's gotten around, but it's not in popular distribution at this point.
Well, we're going to work on that, Jay. Yeah. Dr. Marie Swingle, Jay Gunkelman, see you in the morning. Be there, be square. We will end the stream now.
Have a good night one way or the other.
All right.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode.
The NeuroNoodle podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.
Hey everyone, here's a quick message from our good old buddy Joshua Moore at Alternative Behavioral Therapy.
I'm preparing to do an introduction to QEEG phenotypes. This is my first workshop on the topic, and this is just the introductory overview of the project. This is going to be very, very basic. So let's review each phenotype. We're just going to go through them one by one. If you look at the DSM 1, 2, or 3, and you look at the first chapter, it actually acknowledges that the DSM in mental health is just, quote, a descriptive adaptation, unquote. We're going to customize the interventions and tailor them to the individual's brain activity, not just applying the treatments or trainings to the individual's phenotype and maybe even their variants, but also customizing the protocols themselves to fit that person's individual unique frequency patterns. Maybe a dozen ways to have excessive energy in your nervous system, and then there's an infinite amount of ways to relate poorly to that excessive energy, which means that there is a lot of variations in what someone might call anxiety. And that doesn't mean that we're talking about the same thing when we're talking about anxiety. So, complicated stuff. But when we look at a brain map, we get some basis in which we can start talking about what is this energy. Then we have to go to the client. We have to start talking to the client about what is your association to this specific kind of energy that I can see now. Then we get to care about things that insurance doesn't restrict us on. We get to care about like the person in a broader way. 85% improvement in mental health report following pairing a medication with a specific phenotype. You know, geez. Okay, have you seen 85% in any mental health studies for any medication? I'm going to be going over a whole bunch of different types of tests, assessments and things that can be used that have things called neurocorrelates, which you saw some of those already, better success outcomes. That's what we really want. We need better predictive power. We need better individualization. That's what we want.